Millionaire hires a poor woman, but when she walks into the boardroom as his boss, he froze. The rain hit the city in furious waves, drumming against windshields, hammering rooftops, drowning out the distant hum of traffic. Jackson Cole barely noticed. His focus was on the road ahead, his hand gripping the leather steering wheel of his sleek black Aston Martin as it glided through the storm. It had been another long day at Cole Enterprises, another string of meetings, deals, and people who bent over backward to please him. Power was an expectation, not a privilege. His time was currency, and everyone around him seemed desperate to earn a fraction of it. He smirked as he thought of the executive team still arguing in the boardroom when he left. Fools, he thought. None of them could keep up with him. But just as he was about to turn onto the highway, something caught his eye. A woman, standing alone on the sidewalk, gripping the handle of a tattered suitcase. Her clothes were soaked through, clinging to her thin frame. Wet strands of dark hair stuck to her face, but it was her eyes that made Jackson slow the car. There was no plea in them, no desperation, only defiance. For a moment he considered driving past. She wasn't his problem, but amusement tugged at him. What would happen if he did stop? If he threw her a bone and watched how quickly she'd grovel for it? With a flick of his wrist, Jackson pulled over, rolling the window down just enough to keep himself dry. "You lost, sweetheart?" he asked, his voice smooth but condescending. The woman didn't flinch. "I don't need your pity." Jackson chuckled. Feisty. That made it more interesting. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, sleek, embossed, a golden emblem of his empire pressed into the surface. "Since you clearly don't need charity, how about a job?" he said. "We always need cleaners." Her fingers hesitated before taking the card, but she didn't thank him. Didn't even nod, just stared, as if memorizing his face. That should have been his first warning. That should have been the moment he walked away. Instead, he smirked and drove off, never giving her another thought. He would soon regret it. The next morning, Emily Hayes stood outside the towering glass skyscraper of Cole Enterprises, gripping the business card so tightly that the edges had curled. The golden letters gleamed under the rising sun, mocking her. She took a breath. This wasn't just a job. This was step one. The security guard barely looked at her as she walked in. The receptionist, a polished woman with a clipped voice, glanced at her cheap clothes before rolling her eyes. "You're here for the cleaning job?" she asked. Emily nodded. "Third floor, speak to maintenance. No welcome to Cole Enterprises. No what's your name." Just like that, she was another invisible worker in a building filled with men who made more in an hour than she had seen in a lifetime. But she didn't mind, because she wasn't here to clean forever. Emily worked without complaint, without question, without notice. She swept floors while executives strolled past, their voices dripping with self-importance. She wiped conference tables as men in suits debated million-dollar deals, and she scrubbed the walls of Jackson Cole's personal office, memorizing every name, every decision, every flaw in his empire. Because there were flaws, she heard things they didn't think mattered: budget cuts, hidden investments, unsteady partnerships. She learned who was weak, who was greedy, who wanted more but was too afraid to reach for it. And most importantly, she learned how Jackson operated. He was ruthless, but lazy in his power, trusting the wrong people, dismissing the ones who saw the cracks. He assumed money would keep him untouchable. He was wrong. Emily's past had taught her that power is never permanent. It was a game, and she had spent years learning how to play it. She just needed her moment, and it came sooner than she expected. Jackson Cole wasn't used to problems, so when his company's biggest investors started hesitating, he was annoyed. When whispers of instability circled the boardroom, he was irritated. And when, one morning, he found out that a majority of his company's shares had been silently bought out, he was furious. It wasn't supposed to be possible. He owned this company, controlled every piece of it. No one could just take it from him. But the documents didn't lie, And then came the announcement. Cole Enterprises has been acquired. The new CEO will address the board tomorrow. Jackson sat at the head of the long mahogany table the next morning, arms crossed, jaw tight. His executives murmured around him, speculating, sweating. Then the doors swung open, and in walked Emily Hayes, not a cleaner, not invisible, not beneath him. His boss. She set her leather-bound notebook on the table, meeting his stunned gaze with a calm smile. "Good morning, gentlemen," she said smoothly. "Shall we begin?" Jackson's mouth went dry. He had hired his own downfall. Silence stretched across the boardroom. The executives, once arrogant and dismissive, sat stiffly in their seats. Some darted nervous glances at Jackson, waiting for his reaction. But Jackson couldn't speak. He was frozen. Emily sat gracefully, folding her hands. "Let's not waste time," she continued, flipping open the first page of her notes. "Changes are coming." Jackson finally found his voice. "What the hell is TIS?" Emily didn't blink. "Business, Mr. Cole. You should be familiar with that." The room shifted. The air was different. Jackson had always controlled the space around him. His name commanded power. His presence alone silenced rooms. But today, he wasn't the one in control. And for the first time in his life, he felt powerless. Jackson felt a foreign sensation slither through his chest, helplessness. He had walked into this boardroom expecting to crush whoever had dared to buy his company. He had never expected to see her, Emily Hayes, the woman he had dismissed as nothing, the woman whose name he hadn't even bothered to remember. And yet, here she was, seated at the head of his table. His boardroom, his company. No, this had to be a mistake, some sick joke. "You think this is funny?" Jackson spat, his voice laced with fury. Emily tilted her head, amused. "I think it's fascinating," she replied. "How quickly things can change." The executives around the table shifted in their seats, uncertain. No one was rushing to Jackson's defense. They were watching, waiting, to see who held the real power now. And in that moment, he knew he had already lost. Jackson forced himself to regain control. He wouldn't be humiliated in his own domain. He straightened his tie, masking his rage. "All right," he said coolly. "Since you seem to think you're in charge, why don't you explain how you pulled this off?" Emily gave him the kind of smile that wasn't really a smile. It was the expression of someone who had waited a long, long time for this moment. "I played by your rules, Jackson," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "You built this company by exploiting weaknesses. You used people, discarded them when they were no longer useful, and while you were busy looking up, I was watching from below." Jackson's fingers curled into fists. "You can't just walk in here and expect to take my company from me," he growled. Emily leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "I already did." Silence. Then, she slid a file across the table. Jackson hesitated before opening it, and his stomach dropped. Stock reports, ownership transfers, board signatures. She hadn't just bought his company, she had outmaneuvered him. "Impossible," he muttered. Emily's eyes gleamed. "Oh, but it's very possible. You see, while you were busy underestimating me, I was learning everything I needed to destroy you." And just like that, Jackson Cole, the untouchable billionaire, felt the ground crumble beneath his feet. Jackson couldn't stop staring at her. How? How had she done this? Who the hell was she? As if sensing his thoughts, Emily leaned back in her chair, fingers tapping lightly against the table. "You don't remember me, do you?" she mused. Jackson's jaw tightened. "Should I?" A quiet laugh escaped her lips, but there was no humor in it. "Of course not," she said. "You don't remember the people you step on." She stood up, slowly walking around the table, each step measured. "But I remember you, Jackson. I remember the day you sat across from my father and told him his company was worthless. I remember watching as you crushed everything he built. And I remember the moment he collapsed from the stress of losing it all." Jackson's mind raced. Then it clicked. Hayes Industries, a small but promising firm that had gone bankrupt overnight after a hostile takeover, a takeover that he had orchestrated. He hadn't thought about it in years, just another win in his collection. But for Emily Hayes, it had been the day her life shattered, and now she had shattered his in return. "You think this is revenge?" Jackson snarled, his voice tight with fury. Emily smiled. "No, Jackson, this is justice." He shot up from his seat. "You have no idea what you've done. Running a company isn't the same as stealing it." "Stealing?" she echoed, amusement flickering in her eyes. "That's funny, because that's exactly what you did to my father." Jackson's blood boiled, but he wasn't out of the fight yet. "You think you've won just because you got this far?" he said, stepping closer. "You have no idea what it takes to be me. This company runs on my name, my connections, my power. Without me, it will crumble." Emily didn't flinch. She simply turned to the board members, the men who had once hung on to Jackson's every word. "Gentlemen," she said smoothly, "would anyone like to inform Mr. Cole about the vote?" Jackson's heart stopped. Vote? One of the board members, a man Jackson had known for years, cleared his throat awkwardly. "The board has already voted," he admitted. "You've been removed, effective immediately." Jackson's ears rang. His own board had turned on him. His own people had betrayed him, and there was nothing he could do about it. Emily turned back to him, victorious. "Any more questions, Jackson?" For the first time in his life, Jackson Cole had nothing to say. Jackson didn't remember walking out of that boardroom. He only remembered the sound of Emily's voice echoing behind him. "Oh, and Jackson?" He paused, his body stiff. "You might want to check your personal accounts," she said lightly. "Seems like someone made some very poor financial decisions." His stomach sank. He turned, his expression one of raw, naked fury. Emily simply smiled. "Checkmate." Jackson Cole stormed out of the boardroom, his heart pounding so violently he could hear the blood rushing in his ears. His tailored suit clung to him like a second skin, suddenly suffocating. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. The empire he had spent years building, gone, his reputation shattered, and worst of all, she had done it. Emily Hayes. The name burned in his mind like a curse. His driver was already waiting outside the Cole Enterprises building, the black town car idling at the curb. Jackson yanked the door open and slid inside, barely acknowledging the driver before barking, "Home, now." The moment the door shut, he pulled out his phone, fingers shaking as he logged into his private banking accounts. His stomach dropped, frozen. His assets, his offshore holdings, his carefully hidden reserves. Every single account had been frozen. The panic clawed up his throat. He immediately dialed his personal banker. The call rang once, twice, then disconnected. His own bank had cut him off. It was like watching his life crumble in slow motion, and he knew exactly who was behind it. Emily hadn't just taken his company, she had taken everything. Back in the boardroom, Emily sat at the head of the table, perfectly composed as the last of the former executives filed out. She let out a slow breath. It was done. Jackson Cole was out. For the first time in her life, she was in control, but this was just the beginning. She turned to the remaining board members, those who had been smart enough to side with her before the takeover. "We have work to do," she said smoothly. One of the men, Daniel Brooks, the CFO, adjusted his tie nervously. "What's the next step?" Emily leaned forward, her gaze sharp. "Simple," she said. "We're going to rebuild this company, properly." She saw the uncertainty in their faces. "Let me make something clear," she continued. "I'm not here to play Jackson's game. No more corruption, no more backdoor deals. We do things differently now." Some of the men nodded. Others exchanged hesitant glances. Then Emily smiled. "But make no mistake," she added, her voice calm, steady. "I didn't take down Jackson Cole just to be polite. Anyone who thinks they can undermine me will find themselves exactly where he is now, Silence. Then, one by one, the board members nodded. Because they understood, Emily Hayes was not here to clean up after men like Jackson anymore. She was here to lead. Jackson sat in his penthouse, staring at the expensive whiskey in his glass. The penthouse he might lose. The headlines were everywhere. Jackson Cole removed as CEO in hostile takeover. Billionaire empire crumbles overnight. Who is Emily Hayes? The man who had it all, now has nothing. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls from reporters. Calls from his lawyers. Calls from so-called friends who were suddenly nowhere to be found. He ignored them all. Instead, he stared out at the glittering city skyline, his jaw clenched. He had ruled this city once. People had feared him, respected him. Now, he was a disgraced billionaire. And the worst part, she wasn't done yet, because Emily didn't just want to beat him. She wanted to erase him, and Jackson Cole wasn't about to go down without a fight. 3 days later, Emily walked into her new office, Jackson's old office. The skyline view, the expensive furniture, the ridiculous displays of wealth. She had expected to feel satisfaction. Instead, she felt nothing, because this wasn't about the office. This was about justice, and justice wasn't over yet. Her assistant knocked on the door. "Miss Hayes, you have a visitor," she said cautiously. He insisted. Emily frowned. "Who?" The door swung open. Jackson. His suit was still impeccable, but there was a hollowness in his eyes, a quiet fury simmering beneath the surface. "Well," he said, stepping inside, "I have to admit, you surprised me." Emily arched a brow. "You sound almost impressed." Jackson smirked. "I don't respect many people, Emily, but I respect power. And you played the game better than I did." He moved closer, lowering his voice. "But the game isn't over." Emily's eyes narrowed. "What are you saying, J. Jackson?" He leaned against the desk that used to be his, and smiled. "I have a proposition." Emily didn't blink. "You must be out of your mind if you think I'd work with you." Jackson chuckled. "Oh, I don't expect you to work with me, sweetheart. I expect you to watch your back, because I may have lost my company, but I still have power." Emily's fingers tightened around her pen. "Then I'll just have to take the rest of it, won't I?" she said coolly. Jackson's smirk widened. "Then this should be fun." And just like that, the war had begun. Emily watched as Jackson strolled out of her office, his confidence unshaken despite his downfall. She should have felt victorious. She had taken everything from him, his company, his power, his reputation. And yet, his final words lingered in her mind. "I expect you to watch your back." Jackson wasn't the kind of man who disappeared quietly. He was already plotting his return. Emily sighed, pushing her thoughts aside as she turned to the folders stacked on her desk. She had bigger things to deal with. Cole Enterprises, no, Hayes Industries now, was far from stable. The damage Jackson had done over the years ran deep. Corrupt deals that needed untangling. Employees loyal to Jackson who might try to sabotage her. Investors who were unsure about her leadership. But Emily had spent years preparing for this, and she wasn't about to let Jackson Cole or anyone else take this from her. She pressed the intercom. "Call a meeting with the board," she instructed. "We need to discuss restructuring," her assistant responded immediately. "Yes, M&M's Hayes also. There's something else you should see, an article just published." Emily's brows furrowed. "What article?" A few clicks on her computer and then she saw it. "Former billionaire Jackson Cole plans his next move and it involves a comeback." Emily's lips pressed into a thin line. So he was already making his move. Fine. She was ready. Jackson wasn't done. He refused to be erased. Emily might have taken his company, but she hadn't destroyed him. And now he had a new plan. Step 1, regain his financial leverage. Step 2, sabotage Emily's leadership. Step 3, take back what was his. He still had allies. He still had connections. And most importantly, he still had influence. He just needed the right angle. And he found it in an unexpected place. A knock on his penthouse door. Jackson straightened, adjusting his cuffs before opening it. The man standing there was none other than Daniel Brooks, the CFO of Hayes Industries. Jackson smirked. "Ah," he said smoothly. "So, the rebellion begins." Daniel hesitated. "I didn't come here for rebellion, Jackson. I came here because I don't think Emily knows what she's doing." Jackson stepped aside, gesturing for him to enter. "Then let's talk." Emily knew something was wrong the moment she stepped into the boardroom. The energy felt off. The way certain executives avoided eye contact, the way others exchanged glances. And then Daniel Brooks spoke. "Ms. Hayes, while we respect your new leadership, there are concerns about your ability to handle the company's future." Emily remained perfectly still. "Concerns," she repeated. Daniel nodded. "Some investors are nervous. Jackson Cole may no longer be CEO, but his connections are still strong. Some believe." Emily cut him off. "Some believe I can't do this without Jackson." Her voice was calm, controlled, dangerous. Silence. Emily slowly leaned forward, fingers pressing against the sleek surface of the table. "Let me be clear," she said softly, her words razor-sharp. "Anyone who thinks Jackson Cole is the solution is free to leave, but I promise you this, when he falls, and he will fall, I won't be offering second chances." Daniel swallowed hard. The room remained silent, and just like that, the first battle had begun. Jackson wasn't surprised when Emily pushed back. If anything, he expected it. But he had something she didn't. Time. He could wait. He could watch. And when the moment was right, he would strike. One evening, as he sat in a dimly lit bar, swirling a glass of whiskey, his phone buzzed. A message from a restricted number. Jackson smirked. He already knew who it was. "Emily, we need to talk." He chuckled. "Let the games begin." Emily stared at the message on her phone after hitting send. She hated the idea of meeting Jackson again, but she wasn't naive. He was still a threat, and threats had to be dealt with before they became uncontrollable. Her phone buzzed. Jackson's response was immediate. "Name the time and place, sweetheart. Hope you're not too afraid to meet me alone." Emily rolled her eyes. Typical Jackson, still trying to provoke her. She typed back. "Midnight, the old waterfront, no bodyguards, no tricks." A pause. Then his reply. "See you soon." She exhaled slowly, gripping the phone tighter. This meeting would be a battle of minds, and she wasn't about to lose. Midnight. The waterfront was nearly deserted. The only sounds were the distant crashing of waves and the occasional hum of a passing car. Emily arrived first, standing near the rusted railing, her sharp eyes scanning the darkness. Then, footsteps. Jackson emerged from the shadows, hands in his pockets, his signature smirk in place. "Emily," he greeted, voice smooth as ever. "Romantic choice of location. Planning to throw me into the ocean?" Emily didn't flinch. "Tempting. But no, Jackson. I called you here because I want to make something clear." Jackson stopped a few feet away, tilting his head. "Go on." She took a step forward. "You lost," she said, voice steady. "I don't know what game you're playing, but understand this. I won't let you take back what's mine." Jackson laughed softly. "Oh, Emily," he murmured. "You still think this is about the company?" She narrowed her eyes. "Isn't it?" Jackson closed the distance between them, just slightly, lowering his voice. "This is about power, sweetheart. Not business, not money. Power. And you don't know how to keep it yet." Emily's pulse quickened. Not with fear, with fury. "You think I don't know how to hold power?" she said coldly. "Then watch me." Jackson studied her, and for the briefest second, something unreadable flickered in his eyes. Then he chuckled. "This is going to be fun." And just like that, he walked away. Emily clenched her fists, watching his silhouette disappear into the night. The war was just beginning, and she would win. Back in her office, Emily started digging. Jackson was up to something. She needed to know what, and then she found it. A leaked internal report. A mysterious private investor had just poured millions into a competing company, a company that had suspicious ties to Jackson. Emily exhaled slowly. "So, that's your move," she whispered. Jackson wasn't just trying to take back Cole Enterprises, he was trying to build something new, something designed to destroy her. Jackson sat in his high-rise apartment, sipping whiskey as he stared at the city lights. A phone call buzzed through. He answered. "Is it done?" he asked, a voice on the other end, low, professional. "Yes, sir. Everything is in place. By the time Emily realizes it, she'll be too late." Jackson's smirk returned. Perfect. He ended the call. Emily had won the first battle. But now, it was his turn. Emily was running out of time. She had to figure out Jackson's plan before he struck. But there was one problem. Someone inside her company was leaking information to him. She had a traitor, and until she found them, Jackson would always be one step ahead. She tapped her fingers against the desk, mind racing. One thing was clear. This wasn't just a business war anymore. This was personal, and Emily had no intention of losing. Emily stared at the skyline through her office window, jaw clenched, mind racing. Someone in her company was feeding Jackson information. She had worked too hard, fought too long, to let it all crumble now. Her fingers tightened around her pen as she flipped through the latest internal security report. One of her own people was betraying her, and she was going to find out who. She pressed the intercom. "Send in Marco." Within minutes, Marco Rivera, her newly appointed head of security, entered, his expression unreadable. "You found something?" she asked, voice steady. Marco nodded and placed a file on her desk. "3 potential leaks," he said, "all senior level. One of them is feeding Jackson Cole information." Emily's stomach tightened. She flipped open the file, scanning the names. Daniel Brooks, Maya Ellis, Richard Langley. She closed the file slowly. One of them was a snake, and she was going to smoke them out. Emily didn't believe in second chances for traitors. She had lost too much in life to tolerate backstabbers. So she set a trap. She created 3 fake leaks, each carefully planted with misleading financial data. One sent through Daniel's channels. One subtly dropped in a conversation with Maya. One hidden in a report meant for Richard. Only one of them would make its way to Jackson. And when it did, Emily would know exactly who the traitor was. She just had to wait. 2 days later, Emily sat in her office when Marco burst in. "It's him," he said, slamming a document onto her desk. Emily's eyes scanned the proof. A confidential file, one she had only planted in Daniel's network, had surfaced in Jackson's latest business move. Daniel Brooks, her own CFO. A slow, icy fury spread through Emily's veins. She had trusted him, and he had sold her out. She picked up her phone and dialed. "Daniel," she said calmly, "come to my office, now." Daniel walked in, oblivious, his usual smug confidence intact. "You wanted to see me?" he asked. Emily leaned back, studying him. "Yes," she said. "Tell me something, Daniel." "What's it like working for Jackson Cole?" Daniel's face paled. For the first time, he hesitated. Emily stood, placing a single document on the desk. "Because I have proof that you are," she continued. Silence. Then Daniel did what all cowards do. He tried to lie. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said quickly. Emily sighed. "Marco." The door opened, and 2 security guards stepped in. Daniel's eyes widened. Emily crossed her arms. "You have 2 choices," she said. "1, you leave quietly, disappear, and never come near my company again. 2, I expose every deal you've made with Jackson and watch your career go up in flames." Daniel swallowed hard. He knew there was no way out. He grabbed his briefcase, his hands trembling, and stormed out. Emily watched him go, her face unreadable. One snake down. Now, it was time to deal with a real threat. Jackson Cole. Emily thought she had bought herself time, but Jackson was always 3 steps ahead. The very next morning, chaos erupted. Headlines flooded every major business outlet. Jackson Cole's new empire. Coal industries rising from the ashes. Investors flee Hayes Industries after secret deals exposed. Emily Hayes facing internal revolt. Is she losing control? Emily gritted her teeth. Jackson had planted stories, manipulated investors, turned the narrative against her, and the worst part, it was working. She needed to hit back, hard, and she knew exactly where to start. Emily made one call, to an old contact, a journalist who owed her a favor. "Jackson Cole wants a war?" she said coldly. "Let's give him one." 2 days later, a new headline dropped. The truth about Jackson Cole, illegal deals, corruption, and a past he's been hiding. Emily watched the world react. She saw Jackson's smug confidence crack. And for the first time since this battle began, he was on the defensive. Checkmate, Jackson. But the game wasn't over yet. It was just getting started. Jackson Cole wasn't a man who played defense. For years, he had built an empire on offense, power moves, and ruthless strategy, and he wasn't about to let Emily Hayes destroy him. As he sat in his penthouse, whiskey glass in hand, he read the latest hit piece about him on the financial news. The truth about Jackson Cole, illegal deals, corruption, and a past he's been hiding. He smirked. She thought this would break me? No, this was war, and it was time for his final move. He grabbed his phone and made a single call. "Pull the trigger," he said smoothly. Then he sat back, waiting for the explosion. Emily was in the middle of a meeting when her assistant rushed in, pale-faced. "Ms. Hayes, you need to see this. Now." Emily immediately knew something was wrong. She grabbed the tablet her assistant handed her and felt her stomach drop. Breaking news: Emily Hayes under investigation for financial fraud. Sources reveal questionable transactions linked to Hayes Industries. CC to launch inquiry. Did Emily Hayes steal millions? Emily's blood ran cold. This was Jackson. He had fabricated a financial scandal against her. And the worst part, he had planted just enough false evidence to make it look real. Her hands clenched into fists. Jackson was playing dirty. Time to end him. Emily knew she had one shot at taking Jackson down for good. She couldn't just defend herself. She had to destroy him, so she made her own call to a federal investigator. "I have proof that Jackson Cole has been bribing officials and laundering money. Want a case?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then, "Send me everything." Emily smiled coldly. It was time for Jackson to burn. Jackson sat in his penthouse, sipping his drink, waiting for the news of Emily's downfall. Instead, he got something else, a knock on his door. He frowned, unexpected. He opened it and froze. FBI agents, badges, a warrant. "Jackson Cole," the lead agent said. "You're under arrest for fraud, bribery, and money laundering." For the first time in his life, Jackson had no words. As the handcuffs snapped around his wrists, he stared blankly ahead. He had thought he won, but Emily had played the long game, and she had checkmated him, for good. Emily watched the breaking news from her office. Jackson Cole arrested in shocking corruption scandal. Former billionaire faces years in prison. She let out a slow breath. It was over. She had taken everything from him, his company, his power, his freedom. And now, she was finally free. She turned to her assistant. "Schedule a press conference," she said calmly. "It's time to close this chapter." Her assistant nodded and left. Emily stared out at the city skyline, finally at peace. Jackson Cole had built an empire on arrogance, corruption, and greed, and in the end, it had been his own downfall. Emily had won. As Emily stands victorious, having taken everything from Jackson, she finally feels at peace. Or does she? Because power isn't just about winning, it's about keeping it. And somewhere, in the shadows, someone else is watching. Someone who knows Emily's past. Someone who isn't done with her yet. The question is, now that Emily has taken the throne, how far is she willing to go to keep it?